Alright, I like what you got there. Let me show you what I got. Check this out. Bring the bass line. Hey yo, shut it down.
All these brothers my guys, know that they fly, know that they ride or die. I keep boys by my side, CJ Ike, never gotta roll with ice. Generations caught up, look how things will switch. People there quick, now they wanna move at the bits. Boy wanna throw to bitch, nah. All these brothers my guys, know that.
I agreed to sit down with my co-host today because I wanted to talk about childhood trauma. And not just childhood trauma, but rape, specifically. The reason why I want to talk about rape is because lately I've sat in a lot of lives and I'm listening to men say crazy things like, what was she wearing? Women need to stay out of public places. Houseway. How do we stay out of public places? We have to go to work. Our children have to go to school. We have to move around in life. We have to go to the grocery store where now you feel like you're owed a hello when I'm shopping for my groceries. If you go before me to the restaurant, if you open the door, you feel like you're owed a thank you. Whereas I do feel like these things are common gestures of courtesy where one should or maybe would like to say thank you. Not everyone was raised the same, and we all need to understand that a courtesy is a request, not a requirement. Hi, I am the Redhead Gemini, and I do have a special co-host with me today. Go ahead and introduce yourself and tell everybody where you can be found.
Hi, yeah, my artist name is Blue You could actually find me at Blue on Instagram and TikTok as well as Deadpoetjamz on TikTok.
Deadpoetjamz is now my new permanent co-host for the Her Psychology podcast, where we'll be airing an episode every Monday at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. They will be released on Monday at 5. So the purpose of this episode, the so-called safe space, is to shed light on how childhood trauma, specifically kidnapping, can reshape a person's sense of safety and trust. It explores what it means to survive when the world no longer feels secure, and how healing requires creating a new definition of safety within yourself. Though sharing the experience of being kidnapped after a 4th birthday and the journey up to the kidnapper's arrest, this episode aims to 1. Give a voice to the silenced child within who endured the trauma, help listeners understand the long-term emotional impact of early childhood abduction, show the power of reclaiming your narrative as part of the healing process, and then it provides a therapeutic conversation that helps survivors reflect on their own definitions of safety. And it also encourages others who have experienced trauma on how they are not alone and that freedom exists beyond their survival. So, I do not know the questions that I'm going to be asked today. I have agreed to sit down with my co-host and do this interview. So I am going to try not to be too graphic or any details, but I do want to give a realistic view of what that felt like. I am the person that was kidnapped at the age of 4 off of the street in Atlanta, Georgia, while walking to the corner grocery store with my brother. And I want to talk about that just based on some of the things that I'm hearing men say lately, like, what was she wearing? I was wearing a pink jumpsuit with 4 pigtails in my hair at the age of 4 with white sneakers on. And honestly, I really don't think it has anything to do with what she was wearing. I think it has a lot to do with men's behavior and how we need to start holding them accountable and stop shifting the blame on to women. So I am going to give you the floor, Dead Poet, and go ahead and with your questions.
Okay. Hi. Okay. Can you take me back to the day it happened? What do you remember seeing, hearing, or feeling right before it started?
The day that it happened was, I think I was getting ready for my 4th birthday, or we had just had my 4th birthday. There was something going on. It was it was a couple of weeks after my 4th birthday. And in the promo, I said 1979, but it was actually 1978. And my mom needed some mustard. She had asked my older brother to go to the store. I just kept begging to go with him. So I kept begging, and then she finally said yes. So before that, it was a joyous occasion. We were at the house. Everybody was getting ready for the celebration. We were just walking to the store. A neighbor, which was a young guy that used to come over to our house, and he used to draw us all the time, me and my entire family. His name was Lee. He was
Mhm.
18. He approached my brother as we were walking to the store. So I kind of remember it being kind of gloomy day. It looked like it was about to rain. It actually started to rain as we were walking to the store. But that's what I recall from that day.
Okay. At 4 years old, right?
Yes.
And at 4 years old, how did you make sense of what was happening to you in that moment? I just want to like kind of reword that because there's to kind of put into perspective that question's referring to after it happening. How did you make sense of it? And were there any sound, smells, or small details that have stayed with you from that day?
Absolutely. So I don't think that I've even made sense of it to this day. Sometimes you just have to come to grips with that everything is not going to make sense because I can't even imagine trying to, in my mind, make sense of why an 18-year-old man would rape a 4-year-old child. Like, how do you make sense of that? What I can tell you is that before it happened, I knew it was about to happen.
Oh,
I can
really?
tell you that as we were walking to the store and it started raining, and I do recall now that I had an umbrella in my hand, the way that he was begging my brother to let me stand outside with him, and he was, he would give him $5 to do so. I found that to be disturbing, even at 4 years old. There's a reason why I found that to be disturbing, which I'm not going to get into within this conversation, but it all made sense now that I'm older, because I will say that there was already something traumatic happening to me that apparently I had already suppressed. And so when we were walking to the store, he kept begging my brother to allow me to stand outside with him. Something said, throw the umbrella into the store, and then try to run after it.
Oh,
I knew something was getting ready to happen to me. And so I tossed the umbrella, and as soon as I took off midair, he grabbed me by my waist.
how did the person who took you speak to you or make you feel during that time? What was the first moment you realized you're in danger or that something wasn't right? Well, you felt it. You felt that instinct as a 4 year old.
I knew at the store that something was wrong. He took me to a wooded area, just was like a big wooded area. Um, it's now like the post office in Atlanta, Georgia, sits right across from the MARTA station. But that's the area where he took me to. At that point, that used to be all woods, and the little corner store thing is still sits there. I think that in that moment, I could not process how and what was happening or what he was doing to me. What I can tell you that he was very abusive. I can tell you that he yelled a lot. He was not talking to me, and everything was absolutely a demand. So it was all about fear. But the thing is, I wasn't afraid. When he gave me a command, I did what he said to do because I am a child, and this is where parenting is very important. When you beat your children as an adult, you teach them to fear other adults when they are abusive as well. And so I was doing as a 4-year old what I had been beat to do previously. So I complied because he was an adult. And we would always hear things like, if another adult tell you to do something, you do it.
Mm-hmm.
There were times when I may have screamed or I may have tried to fight back out of being in pain. But other than those times, I didn't really process how he treated me until I was out of the situation, like out of the woods with him,
Yeah.
like in safety.
Okay. Were were there moments of hope or fear that stood out while you were gone? At 4 years old, what did safety look like in your mind when you were in that situation?
Before the walks to the store, safety looked like community. It looked like family. It looked like you could go outside and you could walk around and not have to worry. The year after this happened, the Atlanta child murders happened. The Wayne Williams missing and murdered children. So this was just the year before that. So it went from, I'm not saying being so safe, but to being not safe at all for a very long time. I think it was from 1979 to 81 or something like that.
Wow.
And every day a child was coming up missing. So if what it felt like before I went to the store was safety, community, family, always having the protection of someone. I have 5 brothers. But what it became was the so-called safe space, which is the world.
Hmm.
And there is nothing safe anywhere you go in this world for a woman. You're not safe in church. You're not safe at work. You're not safe in your home. You're not safe at the park. There is nowhere that is safe as long as there is a predator looking for prey. So my worldview of safety from that moment to the moment that I was released from him, they became stark differences. And I also knew in that moment that you were not going to always have the protection of your parents.
Wow. And did you find yourself trying to be brave or did you lean into your fear? What did that look like for you?
I don't think I was really afraid. Like I said, the instinctiveness to just remain calm and comply was there. I was 4. But I now know that that was bravery.
Yeah.
Whether I realized it in that moment or not, it was bravery because I could have fought and frustrated him and he could have killed me.
Yeah.
So, although in that moment, my parents' teachings helped me, they also harmed me. Yeah.
Okay. Um, um, how did your body respond during that time? Do you remember sensations like freezing, running, or hiding?
Relaxed. I just kind of relaxed myself. There were times when, like I said, I would be in pain. And of course, pain causes you to tense up. It causes you to go into a state of almost shock. You don't know really what's happening. There was a time during the rape that he took leaves and he stuffed them in my mouth. And I could feel the tears running down my face, but I really couldn't say anything because I felt like I was suffocating. And I think that he realized that I was, and he started to kind of like dig it out with his finger or what have you. But I think that really in that moment was the only time that I felt like I may possibly die. But even in that moment, I was just really calm, just really
Wow.
relaxed. And I could feel the tears because it's raining right now. So you got the wind blowing, and I could feel the tears. Like right now, I can even smell what it smelled like a wetty mud. You know how that mud is when you were younger, and I don't know if you got a chance to experience this,
Yeah.
but I definitely did growing up down south in the country with my great grandmother, where you would go outside, you make those thick mud pies, and just the smell of when rain is coming in the
Yeah.
sky. Though that's what I was smelling, and I was going with that. It was very serene to me at that moment, being 4, because what could I do? I was 4. He'd already overpowered me from behind to the point where I'm even in the woods because he carried me all the way there. I didn't walk there gracefully. And so I knew I wasn't able to overpower him. And I just used what I had been taught, which was to do what the adult is telling you to do.
Wow. Okay. What was it like the moment you were found or brought back home?
I think that the moment that I was brought back home probably was more traumatizing than actually being raped. Let me tell you what I mean by that. What I mean is that apparently while I was gone, the police had been called. So when I got back to the house, there were cops everywhere. You just saw like lights and you just heard sirens. And I'm just walking down the street with this guy hand in hand now, all muddy from rain because I've been laid on the ground. My clothes were soaked and I had to put them back on. So I'm walking now with mud all over me in a pink jumpsuit that zipped down the front, muddy tennis shoes, mud and leaves all in my hair. And my mom is standing outside with the cops. My dad is nowhere to be found. I have aunts, uncles, everybody's outside. And I'm walking up, and in my mind, I'm just like, just let me get to my mom. Just let me get to my mom. Because in my mind, these are the safe people because I know them. I knew him, but I never knew him to be anybody that I was safe with. I just knew him as to be the artist that came over to the house that drew our pictures. I didn't know this man. And so we walk up, and my mom, she squats down because, of course, I'm short. And I take off running into her arms. And then she asks me, where have you been? And in my mind, I'm like, where have I been? But what do you, I don't know where I've been. I was kidnapped. And of course, they knew that part because I'm sure my brother had to tell them the entire situation. That's how they knew to call 911. I started to tell her the story because on the way home, Lee, my predator, had rehearsed with me what I should say,
Oh my gosh.
which was, I saw you with another man. I recognize you and I took you from him and I'm taking you home. This is what he rehearsed with me to say verbatim. That was it. So we get to the house and I run up to my mom. I see her squatting, police and everybody, my aunts, uncles, because they were there coming over for a celebration. But now this has turned into a search because I'm missing. I recall my mom grabbing me and saying, where have you been? And I'm shocked. Like I'm happy to see my family. I'm just imagine, because I don't even want to go into the feeling. And then she just started shaking me. Where have you been? Just like shaking me and screaming at me. And now I'm even more traumatized. Then I break down crying, and then I say what happened. I just blurt it out. I'm telling everything, how he kidnapped me off the street and all of that. And what happened, where he took me to, I didn't know exactly, where I was, but I knew what the store was. And I knew that the area was a wooded area. So that's what I'm telling them what we passed and what we walked past. The police were there. They asked me what was happening. My mom, after speaking with them, decided to take me in the house and clean me up. Well, you know that we have to have evidence if we're going to pursue a rape case. We know that now.
What
I'm
did the
not
cops
certain.
say? I'm sorry.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I don't recall that part. I just recall that I did not go to the hospital at that time. My mom took me to the house and washed me up. And I didn't know the process of him going to jail and me having to do a rape kit. I'm for. Like, that's not something I know. And like I said, I don't even know if my mom knew. This was 78. So we do pursue charges. He does wind up going to jail. And they at first did not want to press charges because they said I was going to be too young by the time it came up to remember. So they didn't even want to pursue him at first. And then they made mention at that time that we don't even have any evidence. We don't have any evidence, what happened. And at that time, they didn't have any evidence. So they did not want to pursue it. It was up to the jury, prosecutors, to make that decision. So we waited for quite some time. They came back and went ahead and made the decision to do it. And then I did wind up testifying, and then he did go to jail. But that process was one that was it was further traumatizing, because as a 4-year-old, I'm sitting on the bench in chambers in front of all these people, lawyers and everything, telling my story, sitting right next to the judge on the bench at 4. And I remembered everything, and I still do to this day.
And you were 4 when you testified?
I was 4 when I testified.
They didn't have like a counselor or someone with you for moral support? It's just
Yes, somebody was there. Remember, I'm 51. When this happened, this was years ago. There was a social worker that was in there with me. They had questioned me before court. It was not a long, drawn out process like how they do now. Like now, you go through therapy. They have you doing all this extra stuff. But back then, they did not have those resources. So, and that's one of the reasons why the judge was saying that I don't know if we want to put her through this, because she may not be able to recall. So they did have me speaking with a social worker up until the trial, and it didn't take long to get to the trial. He's the one that returned me. I wound up later on having to be checked out sexually, and they were able to retrieve some DNA days later when I went to the doctor. So, and I think because I had a tear, because I was 4, and he was trying to penetrate me, and so he tore me. And in that tear was DNA. And so that's how they were able to put him in jail.
Okay. How did your family react when they saw you again, and what impact did that have on you as a child? I guess you already answered that, but you could let that go into this one. When the person who kidnapped you was arrested, what feelings did that bring up for you as a child versus now as an adult?
I didn't know that he was arrested. I didn't see him be arrested. So up until I went to court, I, as a 4-year-old, were not having conversations with the police or anything like that. So I didn't know about that. But what I will say that as an adult, what I do realize is no matter how much trauma you go through and whatever the person, the perpetrator, the predator, whatever you want to call that person, does to you, whatever the sentence is nothing compared to the life sentence that the victim, and victim is just an injured person. We have to stop using that word as a slur. We talked about this just yesterday. You are an injured person. You are injured. You may be healed or healthy or healing now. But victim is not a bad word, because that is what you were at that time. Do I look at myself as a victim right now? No. But the very definition of a victim is an injured person, a person that has been harmed. And that is what a victim is. And so I kind of don't understand how we're expected at times to just get over it and to just muddle through it, when that is a trauma that has triggered something in your psychosis. And sometimes people have to be medicated. Sometimes people turn to street medications because things are just so bad and they cannot handle it. And I get it, because it is a constant trigger when you don't know what your triggers are, when you are around people that are triggering you, be the people that don't support you, the men who say, "What were you wearing?" Which is absolutely crazy. It's no excuse for someone else's behavior, no matter what someone is wearing. What does it have to do with this man's behavior? And why are we shifting the blame and the ownership on, in that case, me, a 4-year-old? I'm just walking to the store. And so that is the life sentence that we have to carry as people who have been victimized for the rest of our lives, where they may go to jail for 2-3 years, get out, be okay. Some of them get married. Some of them run away and they escape being on the sexual offenders list. Some of them reoffend and then reoffend and then reoffend, and they go back. They don't, because they'll do the time because they're going to be able to get out and do it again. I don't think that our judicial system is what it needs to be as it pertains to pedophiles in our society. I don't think they're up to par. If you go to other countries where people are being castrated Your hands are being chopped because sometimes their genitals, they need to be on display. The same way my pain and my stress and my fortitude of what I've gone through, trying to get to the point of where I am right now, has been on display for the entire world to see. All of my friends, all of my family, I've had to muddle through. And did I arrive? Absolutely. But was it easy? No. But we will make all type of excuses for predators, and we will show no grace to the people that they victimize. And so I don't think that the life sentence of having to always get up and make a mental note and work yourself through your day to be the best version of yourself is less of a life sentence than what they're receiving. I really think that we're getting the short end of the stick and doing so gracefully.
I agree 1,000%. Do something about that. Do you remember if anyone explained to you what happened in an age-appropriate way, or did you have to make sense of it on your own? How did the experience shape the way you saw safety and trust going up?
I will say that growing up, I grew up in a very abusive household. I talk about this often. I have a book. It's called I Was Four that I am still working on right now because in the process of writing the book, there were things that were becoming unlocked that clearly I had suppressed. And so I've had to, at that point, get back into therapy to even be able to finish the book because I needed to process now these things that I'm learning in the book. I don't know. If I had to be honest and really think about the question, I can't really say that I know.
It's a process because even if you separate yourself from toxic family, toxic people, triggering people, you still have to go out into the world where the predator or somebody can be a teacher, can be the trash man, can be anyone. And because there's really no safety net legally, half the time they don't get caught. There's not enough evidence. And then it's not a big support system with families. Most victims, the hardest thing is that they weren't supported. The hardest thing is that they weren't believed. And I really resonate with that because when you grow up in a violent or toxic environment and you already go through something traumatic, all you want is to run, to someone and cry to them and feel safe and feel validated. And when you don't get that, that's almost more painful than the actual act because if you can go through such pain, at least you'll have that safety of, a parent or somebody validating you. But when you don't have that, that really hurts. And I think that, like you said, it affects us for the rest of our lives. How can we trust when we didn't have that from the beginning?
Yeah, I don't think, and the reason why I'm so adamant that I do not know, because I don't think that my parents, honestly, I don't know if they ever even had that conversation with us. I don't think my parents ever sat us down and had, oh, this is a stranger danger. These are things we learned at school. But because they kept us so sheltered and in the house, we weren't having conversations about if this is your private part.
Yeah.
Don't let it. Normally, back in the day, I'm gonna be honest, in religious households like the one that I grew up in, they didn't have conversations about that because most of the men in those households my biological father was a predator. So they're not telling you, your rapist is not saying to you, that's the safe spot. No one should touch you. They're not teaching you that. I don't even recall my mother teaching me about my menstrual cycle. I think that I came on at school and my fifth grade teacher told me about it.
Wow.
Because I go to her and I'm like, oh my God, miss. And then I say this. She's like, oh my God, babe, let me take you in the bathroom. Let me show you. And then she's the one who taught me about my menstrual cycle. I did not have a maternal mother. And it's crazy, but my father was more of the nurturer and the predator. I can't even explain it to you because it does not make sense. And I'm not going to sit here and try to make it make sense. But he was the attentive parent in a sense that we ate. He made sure we ate the food. The house was clean. He was a tyrant when it came to that. He made sure that the discipline, that's the best way to put it. Men's, when they always say, well, I'm here to discipline. Yeah, that's what he did. Beat the crap out of us. That's what he did. He disciplined us. But he also gave the time and the attention. And he was the more nurturing of the parents that had the conversations with us about life and different things like that as we begin to get older. I'm not saying that when we're younger. And I actually had a better relationship with my dad before he passed away than I have to this day, which is very non-existent, besides hello and goodbye.
Wow.
So I can't even say that. I don't know that we've ever had that. And I think in that moment when you asked me that question, I kind of zoned out because I'm like, man, I'm 51. And I don't know. I don't recall ever having a conversation with my parents.
And it just goes back to, they probably weren't taught, who knows, how their parents were, because I don't think I was raised in a religious household as well, and it was the only thing I was taught about sex was don't do it till you get married. It's bad and you're bad, and pull up your shirt, cover your cleavage when you're like 12 years old. I why are you taught that and not anything else? They don't tell you why or anything. But so we got to change that narrative. When you look back at your 4-year-old self now, what do you wish you could tell her in that moment?
That you are as brave today as you were back then. That you have matured into a woman that you never thought you would be. I am not a very emotional person at all. I don't normally deal in my emotions when I'm dealing with people because I know that people have the propensity to let you down. There is not a person on this earth that can convince me that I can depend on them if my mother and my father could not convince me. As long as you are around and I'm able to see that you are that person and you continue to show up like that for me every day, I'll believe it until I don't see it. But I don't put a lot of stock or a lot of faith into words. With me, it has to be actions because honestly, I've heard a lot of words my entire life, and they just don't mean anything. I'm an action-oriented person, my own self. What I say I'm going to do for you, I do. I don't give any less, and I don't take anything away. I've been that person my entire life. So what I would say to my 4-year-old self is that I have never blamed how I grew up and what I went through for any decisions that I have made in my life, be they good or bad. What I will say is that I learned at an early age that I could not depend on people. You are all that you have. And that is the person that I have invested in. I am a 2-time breast cancer survivor. I am a survivor of domestic abuse. I was almost killed and left for dead. My dad found me. He walked in and found me, and that's why I'm here today. I am a survivor in every aspect of my life, and I wear that as a badge of honor because it takes will to live to be able to fight. And I knew early on, I think that nothing in this life is given, even if it looks like it is. You have to earn it. Nothing is given. I don't believe anything is free. Somebody's paying the price somewhere for it. And so what I would tell my 4-year-old self is that she turned out to be an amazing mother, a wonderful friend, a savvy business owner, great author, and that I'm loyal to the people that are loyal to me. But first, I am loyal to myself. And I would tell her to keep going because I'm not done yet.
I love that. It's so beautiful.
Thank you.
Ooh.
Do you have any more questions for me?
It says, what did healing look like for you as a child, and how has that changed as an adult?
Ooh, healing as a child. I don't think that healing as a child looked like it looks right now.
Yeah.
That's what it looks like. I don't think I ever experienced healing as a child. I think for the first time in my life, I began to see who I was as an adult at 46 because I had always had children, my spouse, someone else, my family around me. And at that time in my life, and I talk about this often, I became alone. It was just me, just sitting alone in a room by myself as an introvert. no friends, not a lot of family, no relationship, just chilling. I began to look around and just realize, what are you going to do? Who are you? Like, who are you as a person? Who are you really? So I got back into writing. I started creating things that I wanted to do. And I met some really nice people at that time in my life. One was an author, and then one was a young lady that reminded me of somebody in my life. And I became really close with her, still am to this day. And she's like a surrogate daughter to me. And we talk often about grief and how when you lose relationships, whether it be a boyfriend, girlfriend, a marriage, that is a form of death. Something is dying off for something else to grow and live in that spot. And so motherhood, in a sense of being with my children every day, that had died off because they're all adults. And now I had to continue to grow as an individual person without a family, a husband, children right in front of me every single day. And I was lost. And my daughter would always tell me, you need to start dating. You need to get out. You need to start doing something different because you do so much for us. When we're gone, you're not going to have your own life because you are wrapping everything into us. And she was 1000% correct. And I saw it in the moment that I'm sitting in the room by myself. I said, wow, you're 46 years old, and this is the first time you've ever lived by yourself. You went from living in a home with your siblings to becoming a parent to being somebody's wife and now an empty nester. You've never lived alone. What are you going to do? The walls started closing in, and I got into therapy, got back to writing, and then I am where I am at today. It is not difficult to make a decision and stick on it. What is difficult is trying to please other people while you're doing it. And I think that is what I had to let go of in that moment to get to just where I am right now. I don't care what you think, I'm getting ready to do it. That's where I'm at right now.
I love that. Okay, let's see. Are there parts of yourself that you feel were frozen at that age because of what happened? What has happened? What has been the most empowering part of telling this story now versus keeping it inside? I don't think you did keep it inside, right?
I did keep it
Oh,
inside.
you did.
I did. I do not really talk about um my personal life, my life at all, just with random strangers. The reason why we're able to have this conversation is because I got to a point where I felt like I needed to write a book about some things. And the book has been 20 years in the making. And so that is when I really started talking about it. I've been in relationships where people don't even know anything that even happened to me. And then I've been in relationships with people and they may know one or two of the things that happened to me, but they don't know all the things that I've gone through. And I've gone through quite a bit of things, but I don't wear those things as a badge of honor. I don't wear them as something that I allow to dictate who I am as a person. They are circumstances that I went through, but they are not at all who I am today. It's kind of difficult to answer the question in its wholeness because it has a lot of different moving parts to it. But I will say this. I am in the process of continual healing because no one is completely healed from trauma. Anybody saying that is lying. You're going to always be triggered by something. Because when you go through trauma, there are pockets of your life and situations and circumstances that you just block out subconsciously. And then when you get in situations like falling in love and you have to use that heart and you have to open it up and the guards have to come down and the walls crumble, you start to experience feelings that have never been penetrated ever in life. And that's usually where trauma starts to expose itself. A lot of you have been dealing on the surface and that's why you've never cracked the code. So in that regard, you have to just tell yourself that you are on a continual process of healing and take the one day at a time. That is what I have, I guess, proceeded to do for myself. And that's not difficult when I realize that what I'm doing is for me. What is difficult, again, is when I am trying to do this to please other people. If I was in a relationship right now And the person said, I don't like what you're doing. I don't like the things that you're talking about. Could you not talk about it? I don't want my family, I don't want my friends. Then I'm going to automatically know that that is not the person for me. Because the person for me wants to see me in my best light. A person that values, that respects, that honors me wants to see me thriving, because if I am thriving, then he is thriving. But if I am broken, I will cut him all into pieces. And some people want to be cut up. I, however, don't want to cut anyone up. And so if I'm in a relationship with a man and what I'm doing is a bit too much for him, then he's too little for me.
Okay, something that I wanted to address, or that resonated with me, what you said, what you mentioned, was when this was happening to you, you didn't fight it because you were taught by your parents, and that saved you, that, that form of surviving through that. And as a victim, a survivor myself, I constantly battle with feeling that I could have done more, I could have fought, and feeling guilty, and kind of like being a perfectionist in my own healing and trauma. Well, I need to be healed by this time, and I should have fought, and I should have done this. And I just want to, because it was so healing for me to hear that maybe if I fought, I could have been killed. And I never thought of that. I've never thought of that as an option. I always blamed myself in every scenario for not being aggressive, for not yelling, for not screaming, for not fighting, because I was also raised um in a religious Catholic household where it was like respect the elders no matter what, and also with the violence and feeling that, being obedient is going to keep you safe. So yeah, I just wanted to thank you, because that helped me see some things, and maybe it could help other women, like from their guilt, not to, overanalyze the way I have in the past.
It's like we have allowed society to make us question if we could have done anything. If I am a murderer, I don't care what you do to lock yourself in your home, how many guns you buy, how many alarm systems you put up, whatever you're going to do to deter me. If I am a murderer and I want to murder someone, it might not be you, but it will be someone. You have to think the same way about a predator, no matter what form they're going to come in, especially in one that is a rapist. It is about overpowering, and it is about control. One thing that I have found, and I've heard many women say this because I believe it to be true, and I believe this is the reason why he did not penetrate me. He attempted, but he did not succeed, because I did not come off as afraid. I wasn't fighting. And I've heard a lot of women say that because they didn't fight, sometimes the rapist just got up and left. They want to have a sense of control, a sense of empowerment. And if they're not able to overpower you, because that's what they're getting off on. They're not getting off on the rape itself. They're getting off on being able to dominate you. And yes, the rape is a plus in there with that for them. But that's not what this is about. This is about control and domination. And so when you're not able to control someone, and that's your kick, what are you going to do? Sometimes they kill you, and then sometimes they leave. And I've heard it go both ways. But there have been women that have testified that because they did not fight back, the rapist didn't even want to continue the rape. It's a lot to think about.
Yeah.
It's a lot, and just sitting here having this conversation is like, wow, you understand why I was 4 and he was 18, because it's easier to dominate a child. That's why that word submission is so,
Yeah.
it's easy.
And I feel like this conversation kind of tackles a few aspects of the male, kind of that male narrative of, well, what was she wearing, and stay in safe places. Well, it doesn't matter what she's wearing, and there are no safe places. And the predator can be anybody. It could be someone that's a priest, and it could be an 18-year-old. And another thing that they do is that they say, well, that girl was too old. She was already 17. She was already 18. Like, she's an adult. So, But when it's an 18-year-old predator, they're like, oh, he's so young. He didn't know any better. There's all of this, like, excuses for the boy. And that's all we're trying to explain to the man. And I think another thing, and then for the women, we just want to validate them. And if there are any survivors or victims that see this, we just want to let you know that it doesn't matter. Like, it's not your fault. It doesn't matter what you wear. It doesn't matter where you go. Like you said, we have to look at them like murderers too. And I think, like you said, like society has made you think, oh, it's different with this for some reason. But I would even go as far as to saying that being sexually assaulted in that way affects your whole life. So detrimental, that's worse than AIDS, cancer, that's worse than even losing your life because of how debilitating and how it really does affect every aspect of your life. And it could affect people's senses, smells, ability to learn, ability to function in jobs and relationships. And yeah, for the rest of their lives. Because you can, like me, I felt really good. And then all of a sudden, like, I'll go into a yoga studio and being a baby pose will, have a really negative reaction and or giving birth. So like you won't know, but all of a sudden you'll get triggered by all of these experiences. So I just want to commend you for sharing and for being here and being a voice for many women, because a lot of us don't have the bravery or courage to speak about it and to share and to be that strong voice that also makes us feel validated with these experiences. Because a lot of us don't have that family or don't have the same thing. We didn't have those parents or siblings that believed us or supported us.
You're right. I do want to add that so on something that you said when you're talking about the 17 or 18-year-old, and this is my thing. The only difference between a 17 and an 18-year-old is 11:59 p.m. That is it. She did not wake up the next day and become a flourished older woman because she turned 18. We have to stop leaning on that, sirs. We have to. If you are a predator, just say that. You sound better saying I am a predator and I'm preying on the children versus making an excuse about the age of the child, because we all know that it does not really matter. Again, I was 4. And if there weren't any laws that said you couldn't touch her at 12, the story would be out of 12. So let's be clear. The only difference between a 17 and an 18-year-old is 11:59 p.m. There is no other difference. I'm going to go ahead and give my closing arguments if you don't have anything else. Sometimes the places we believe are safe are only shelters for our pain until we find the courage to speak it aloud. True safety isn't in the walls around us. It's in the freedom to reclaim our voice and rewrite our story daily. This is my affirmation for you. You are no longer trapped in the moment that hurt you. Your safety lives within you, and every breath you take is proof that you are free. Here are some books to go along with today's episode. The Body Keeps the Score by Bessel van der Kolk, Understanding How Trauma Lives in the Body and How Healing Can Happen Over Time. What Happened to You by Oprah Winfrey and Dr. Bruce Perry. And that's a compassionate look at trauma and resilience, focusing on childhood experiences. No Visible Bruises by Rachel Louise Snyder, which explores the hidden impacts of violence and survival. And last but not least, Trauma and Recovery by Judith Herman, a classic on the stages of healing after trauma. I would like to thank you for joining us today for this very special episode. and getting a chance to meet my new co-host, the Blue Hatter, also known as Deadpoetjamz. Join us right here every Monday at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time for another episode of the Her Psychology series. Did you want to say anything else before we close out?
No, just thank you.
Thank you guys and see you next time. I am Thereadheadgemini.